So here's a little fun fact. At one point, Bethesda was approached to create a Game of Thrones game. Now this was all the way back in the days before Skyrim, and although it definitely seems like there were serious conversations over a Song of Ice and Fire adaptation from Bethesda, Todd Howard instead opted to create their own world, and not too long after, Skyrim was born. But something like this really does make you wonder, what would a Bethesda-directed Game of Thrones game actually look like? Well, fortunately, thanks to the beauty of modding, you don't really have to wonder all that much, because now modders are adding Game of Thrones to Skyrim with Skyros, which is going to be the main subject of today's video. And this project is the real deal. The project overall is going to focus on Westeros, at least at first, and the team is hard at work at recreating a Skyrim-sized map of Westeros with events and characters from both the TV series and books being featured here, which for some of you is probably music to your ears. No, this is not just going to be based off the TV series, book characters will be in here too. And of course, with this being based in Skyrim's engine, the intent here is a full-on branching story. Your choices will impact events at pivotal moments in this story, so you'll have opportunities to make choices to influence Westeros overall, be able to have different outcomes to that familiar story. For some of you, this could be that perfect therapeutic tool to finally get over Season 8. But also, before we fully dive into this project, I have to give a shout out to Heavy Burns. They are another YouTuber, and they themselves make some pretty incredible Skyrim content, including all of the gameplay released on Skyros. Pretty much all of the gameplay is on their channel. So I reached out to them and got permission to use it for this video, but if you are looking for another great Skyrim YouTuber to check out, I'll have a link to Heavy Burns' channel in the description, and also a link to Skyros in the description if you just want to check that out. So this mod is going to break up the familiar Game of Thrones story into a quest line, and specifically this project will visually look very similar to the Game of Thrones TV show, taking many notes from what we could visually see during the events of that show, but it's actually going to be based more heavily on the A Song of Ice and Fire books. So as I mentioned earlier, some of the book characters will be here, but this will even extend a bit further, and they're going to kind of have this interesting mesh of a world partially from the show, and in particular, a lot of the visual aspects will be from the show, but also partially from the books, such as with Dragonstone. That's going to get a prominent feature in this mod, Dragonstone of course appearing both in Hot D and GOT at this point, but in Skyros, it'll have the book-mentioned volcano that is just beside it, but some of the other design elements of the castle itself are heavily influenced by the two shows. So it does create this pretty interesting combination of both show and book elements meshing together. But of course, during this, there's going to be a notable focus on us as the player. We'll have a lot of player autonomy, and we could play a role in some of the major Game of Thrones events. This ranging from things like representing Tyrion in his trial at the Vale, or even just attempting to stop the assassination of Ned Stark. And then you can see the various ripples this will have on the story overall based on our actions. But of course, the main quest here is going to be around succession. The story will begin with us arriving at Winterfell as a part of King Robert's entourage. And following this, we'll have a variety of opportunities to swear fealty to different houses. The 5 major options are going to be the Starks, Targaryens, Greyjoys, Baratheons, and even the Lannisters. But there's a lot of other side content that you could do even outside of the major houses, like just joining the Night's Watch. And they describe how actions could have far-reaching consequences on the main quest. And although I haven't seen it explicitly confirmed, it definitely seems like they're going for that familiar Song of Ice and Fire mentality where a lot of people could die. You'll probably have a lot of opportunities with taking out other individuals if you want to. But of course, this is going to be an RPG, and you'll have a variety of character customization choices as you will be beginning this story. You're really going to start at the bottom, as you probably should in this world, and start off as either a lowly messenger, a free rider, or even a retainer. But there'll also be a variety of starting races just like in Skyrim. You could be things like Valyrian, Firstmen, Andals, Dothraki, Ironborn, Dornis, Giscari, Summer Islander, Yiddish, or even Ashai. And I imagine some of you are curious about what else is going on in this world, what about outside of just Westeros. Right now the plan is for Westeros to be the main landmass. It'll be shrunken down somewhat to accommodate for Skyrim's engine, and the plan right now is to have 2 smaller world spaces for the north of the wall area as well as for Essos. A big point with the most recent update is some of the 3D work that's being done on this project. We get a look at some of the castles like Winterfell that have been painstakingly remade, and the team describes using all sorts of media to make this a reality. These look incredible. They're definitely far more intricately designed compared to the familiar castles we have in Skyrim, and overall things are visually being modeled after the show, but again taking details from the books when necessary. One aspect that has gotten quite a considerable time investment is the characters' faces. The team describes using numerous reference images and photo projection to attempt to make your favorite character's face as accurately as possible. Over 8 seasons, a lot of people got very familiar with some of these characters' faces, and they want that to be well represented in the game. And I gotta say, what they've shared thus far definitely reflects that. There's a ton of detail in these faces, and I think if you've watched Game of Thrones, even just a couple of seasons, you'll immediately be able to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I know exactly who this is. There's not really any confusion there, which is definitely not something every mod project is able to pull off. We also got a more proper look at dragons, which of course are going to be a massive feature in this. These things are stunning, which honestly isn't entirely surprising, as one dev described redrawing each individual scale to maintain a genuine and naturally imperfect look. The amount of dedication is definitely well represented here, as these dragons are just incredible looking. Very well representative of what we had in the Game of Thrones TV show, and it's honestly kind of boggling my brain that this is in Skyrim. They look so much better than these Skyrim dragons. But the team is also experimenting with a new skeleton for Skyrim, so these dragons will at times appear twice as large as the Skyrim dragons, to make it feel like they really have an impact, both in the story, but also in just the gameplay overall. And there are actually a variety of custom features that are currently being worked on and implemented with Skyros. Being able to receive messages via ravens, which is a much superior alternative to the typical courier. In Skyros, magic isn't going to be quite as prominent as it was in Skyrim, and instead you'll have to seek out magic in Skyros. And some other NPCs will deny its existence at all. But if you go down this path, there will be some unique rewards for you, like being able to warg into animals, which is reportedly a work in progress feature. And this is one of those things where if you want Skyros to become a reality, the project will definitely need your help. They're seeking experienced writers to join the project right now, and overall to me, Skyros just looks absolutely incredible. Bringing Game of Thrones to life in Skyrim feels like a dream of many Skyrim fans, especially after there being so many rumors that Bethesda was going to do this. I think many of you will probably remember back in 2017 when there was that supposed leaked Game of Thrones RPG from Bethesda, and I know for me I was like, oh wait, that would actually be kind of cool. I kind of hope that happens. But now again, modders are bringing it to light and making this all a reality. And the aspect that gets me most excited is the ability to truly roleplay in this world. We're going to have a ton of custom features added in, and then also that familiar story, which I feel like is a unique thing for a Skyrim mod. There aren't many Skyrim mods or even really video games out there where you kind of already know the beginning, middle, and end of that story, or at least how it should play out. But then you have the ability to change that, to actually modify what happens, and that's something really cool. But also that creates a lot of different and interesting outcomes, and this mod is easily one of the most ambitious on its way to Skyrim right now, which is definitely saying something. If you haven't been paying attention to Skyrim modding as of late, if you just clicked on this video on a whim, you definitely need to pay attention. Skyrim just got things like multiplayer complete overhauls to some of the combat mods out there, and even animated traversal. Climbable ladders in Skyrim are now a thing. And all of that is completely free content you're able to download right now, but there's even more exciting things on the horizon. If you want to get a bit more up to date with some of the upcoming DLC-sized projects on their way to Skyrim, not too long ago I covered Creation ModCon, which was this massive collaborative project to show us a ton of gameplay footage and basically an E3-esque event of upcoming Skyrim mods. It was over 9 hours long and incredible, and I highly recommend checking out that video. Otherwise, as always, again, I thank you for watching, and with that, I hope to see you all next time. Later.